Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the ProRevenge subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's revenge stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from F This Throwaway. Boss undervalues key employee and plays favorites. Made sure that was a big mistake. This is a throwaway account and this happened somewhat recently. I worked as the marketing director at a company. I won't say the industry because the details could give away who I am, but I worked there for almost 2 years. When I started, the company was in bad shape and desperately needed help getting business. I was hired not only because I had strong marketing skills and a proven track record, but also because I had an in-depth understanding of the company's industry, on par with the boss. Right from the beginning, I got to work. I eliminated all the outdated marketing techniques they had been relying on for years and replaced them with modern, effective strategies. I introduced digital ads, print ads, professional graphic design, a revitalized social media presence, in-house video production, commercials, billboards, partnerships with the right vendors, and more. I even improved their reputation within the industry. Whatever the company needed, I could do, and do it faster and for far less money than hiring outside help. It took some effort and several major pitches to convince the boss to give me what I needed. But once he did, the results were undeniable. In less than 2 years, I increased sales by 65%. To put that into perspective, the company made about $4,500 in profit per sale, so this was a massive improvement. At the same time, I managed to save the company about $90,000 in advertising cost. Altogether, I helped drive revenue up by at least $500,000 annually. By any measure, I was a critical part of the company's success. At first, I was on a salary with a hefty bonus promised if we sold a set number of units. I liked the challenge and was motivated to achieve the target. However, I quickly ran into a problem. I didn't have the resources to reach that number. I brought this up to the boss several times, but it felt like pulling teeth to get what I needed. Then, without explanation, my position was switched from salaried to hourly pay. This change forced me to work an additional 10 to 15 hours a week just to make the same amount I used to earn on salary. The financial strain was overwhelming. I lost my car, had to move back in with my parents, and racked up debt. Eventually, a close friend helped me start an online business, which brought in about $2,000 a month in passive income. While it wasn't much less than my take-home pay from the company, it was a lifesaver during this time. Finally, after months of frustration, I managed to get the tools I needed at work and hit my bonus targets for 2 consecutive months. It felt like a small victory, and I slowly began rebuilding my finances. However, there were deeper issues. The boss and I didn't have a great relationship. We were cordial, but he had a noticeable preference for women in the workplace. This became even more apparent when we needed to hire additional staff to keep up with the increased business. One of the new hires was a woman named Marla. She and I got along well, we're still friends, but she was difficult to work with. She was attractive, and the boss was clearly infatuated with her. Every day, he greeted her with kisses on the cheek, let her get away with things that would have gotten others fired, and even gave her gifts. Then, Marla asked for a raise. Instead of considering the fairness of such a move, the boss gave her an additional $400 per week and put her on the same pay schedule as me. Meanwhile, my salary stayed the same, and he raised my bonus targets to an almost impossible level. To make matters worse, Marla's role didn't justify her pay. In this industry, someone in her position would never make that kind of money unless they were managing a large team, which she wasn't. She also had no industry experience. Around the same time, I learned that another coworker, let's call her B, was making $200 more per week than I was. She depended on me for about half of her job responsibilities, but she treated me terribly. The boss constantly praised her for work I had done, which added insult to injury. Things took a turn for the worse when my online business hit a rough patch. For several months, it stopped generating income, leaving me entirely dependent on my job. The inconsistent paychecks, unreachable bonuses, and office drama were unbearable. Although the boss occasionally acknowledged my efforts, it never translated into tangible rewards, like a raise or meaningful recognition. I felt stuck in a toxic environment. The boss favored Marla and B, showering them with praise and benefits, while I was the one actually making the company thrive. The final straw came when I was forced to work late one night, a night I explicitly said I couldn't work, just because Marla wanted to keep her part-time job at a sushi restaurant. With her income, there was no logical reason for her to hold on to a restaurant job. Despite my significant contributions, I received nothing more than a pat on the back. My pay was worse than when I started, and any acknowledgement of my work was fleeting. Meanwhile, Marla and B were thriving thanks entirely to my efforts. Then it hit me. Their success was entirely dependent on me. Thankfully, my online business eventually rebounded, and I started earning a comfortable income again. I even rewarded myself with a used Audi RS7 for the car enthusiasts out there. I parked it in a back lot at work where no one would see it. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I didn't need this job anymore. My business could easily become my career. I began planning my exit. First, I booked a plane ticket to New York City to visit family. This ensured I wouldn't back out of my decision. Reflecting on what the job had cost me, my car, financial stability, and even the burden it placed on my family, I felt betrayed. I decided the company would no longer benefit from my work after I left. Here's what I did before quitting. Google Ads account closed. All campaigns were deleted and couldn't be replicated. Facebook ads shut down, and the company credit card was removed. Since the account was tied to my personal Facebook, the campaign settings stayed with me. Vendor partnerships terminated. Email marketing account deleted. Graphic designs and videos wiped from my work computer. Architectural video display system disabled with all settings erased. This was something the boss was obsessed with, and it would have cost $10,000 to replace. The next day, I walked into work wearing casual clothes. Marla asked why, and I told her to not worry. When the boss arrived, he gave the women their usual kisses, then looked at me with confusion. I told him I was quitting. He asked why, so I explained that I felt undervalued and had been underpaid despite my accomplishments. He asked me to train Marla to take over my responsibilities. I laughed and explained that, given how little I was paid, my resignation was effective immediately, no 2-week notice. That evening, I treated myself to sushi at Marla's restaurant. She was my server, and B was there too. Marla was upset that I hadn't warned her, while B was fake nice about everything. I encouraged them to try their own strategies, knowing they would fail. As I left, I made sure they both saw my car. 3 days later, my phone blew up. Marla and B were struggling and wanted my help. I explained that I had to close the accounts to ensure they weren't tied to me. Even the boss called, offering me a significant raise to return. I declined. A month later, I heard sales had plummeted and the boss was furious. Yesterday, a friend in the industry texted me, "Start looking for a new job. Your old company is being bought out by a competitor." I replied, laugh out loud, "I quit 4 months ago." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Iteration Null. It says, "Yeah, the terrible ethics of this need a lot of emphasis. Anything you produced on the company dime was their property. I'm glad for you that your boss is stupid and doesn't know how much you are liable for damages here. But holy crap, are you a bad person who acted in an unjustifiable way?" Another commenter down below called Longhair Redneck said, "Ha, I like how OP talks himself up as some business wizard with unlimited knowledge of marketing, but somehow doesn't understand what he just did was incredibly illegal. And the longer this post stays up, the greater chance he has of being completely effed by this company's legal team. Doubt it is all true, but if it is, good luck with your new company and hire a great lawyer." If we just take an overall look at this story, OP completely sabotaged the company, but then they told us that they're really bad with money because one month they were struggling and couldn't make ends meet and had to move back in with family for a while, and then a couple months later, they were buying an Audi RS7. The new ones are like 100 grand, so a used one's probably at least 50 or 60 grand. OP, how much debt are you taking on here? Because there's no way you bought that car outright, and from your previous story, you were already in debt, had to move back in with your parents, and lost your previous car. This story was just a collection of bad decisions, and, well, it's been 7 years since this story happened, and there's been no updates, so we have absolutely no idea what situation OP is in now. However, if you look at all these bad decisions, I think we can make a good estimation. This story comes to us from Dwasifar. Try to bully me, new boss? This will be your shortest job ever. Back in the day, I worked as an independent IT consultant and was hired on along with another independent to subcontract on a team for a major consulting house. We'll call it CH. Everyone else on the team was a CH employee. The two of us were not supposed to tell the client that we weren't part of CH, but the client figured it out pretty fast, because we independents were doing most of the work, while CH's code monkeys were busy filling out spreadsheets all day and going on team building exercises. But I digress. The project ran past its initial deadline and my contract expired. I stayed on a week-to-week basis as a professional courtesy to get the project finished because I liked the client if not the team. Unfortunately, the CH project manager was booked somewhere else for his next gig, and they brought in a new guy to replace him. Let's call him David Stress. David flew in on a Monday morning to get the project handed off to him, and immediately started pissing on everything to mark his territory. He was derogatory and belittling to the team, and liked to raise his voice. I was working in my office, well, actually a closet with folding tables that I shared with 3 other team members, and didn't hear what he was saying out in the main room, but I could sure hear his tone. Then he burst into the office and demanded, "How are we doing specific payroll-related conversion task?" I said, "We're using Program X." He waved his hand dismissively and scoffed, "That's stupid. Program X won't work for this. You need to do something else." The other indie was in the room at the time, and she saw me coming up out of my chair. She told me later she thought I was going to deck him. I knew he was full of crap because I wrote Program X. It was a custom code for this project, and he had no way of knowing what it would or wouldn't do. He was just trying to bully me and be the alpha dog. I did not deck him. Instead, I went to the client's payroll manager, with whom I'd been working closely for months, and who was driving the client side of the project. I laid it on the line. I said, "Look, I know you know I don't work for CH. I'm here on an independent contract. That contract is up, and I've been working here week to week just to get you guys through." She told me she was aware of this. Okay, this new guy David Stress is a bully and a blowhard, and I won't work with him. I have no contract at this point, and with him running the project, I won't be back next week. I'm not asking you to do anything specific about it, I'm just letting you know as a courtesy so you can plan to transition my work to someone else. She sat back in her chair, thought a moment, and said, "Okay, thanks for letting me know." 2 hours later, David Stress was removed from his new position. The payroll manager, faced with losing the one technical guy on the team who actually knew what was going on with a very complicated payroll system, called CH and said, "We don't want this new guy, take him away." CH rearranged some things to keep the original project manager with the project. The funniest part of the whole thing was that CH had scheduled a welcome dinner for David at a posh steakhouse that evening. Rather than create the further embarrassment of canceling the dinner, they actually went ahead with it as a farewell dinner for David, who had been on the project for less than 1 day. It was fun to watch him try to put on a brave face for that. Yes, I did stay with the project to the end after that, and yes, they went live successfully. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Old Timey Brain. It says, "Wow, well done. But also, good on David for actually showing up at the dinner." OP responded and said, "Thanks. Not showing up would have been acknowledgement of defeat, and he was too egotistical for that, so he came there to brazen it out as best he could. The thing is, what I told the payroll manager was entirely true. I really was just letting her know I would leave the project if I had to work with him. The revengey way it turned out was a nice validation, but I really wasn't specifically trying to get him fired. I didn't think I had that kind of leverage, so this revenge was almost by accident. So let's take a quick look back at this one. OP wrote the software they were using to do OP's job, and other people likely wouldn't have been able to use it the same way. So OP went to the one person who would be able to make changes to the team, the client that could pull their business or could hire on OP directly, and that got the job done. OP, I know you said you were just letting them know as a courtesy so they could plan to transition your work to someone else, but come on, you had to know this was going to work out in your favor. This story comes to us from Spartan 1008. Boss mistreats new guys, so new guys get boss demoted and then fired. Back in my 20s, I worked for a large national sewer and drain company called Roto-Rooter. It was a great job at a great company, where I was fortunate enough to be trained by some of the most skilled technicians in the industry. However, there was one supervisor, let's call him Billy. Billy was your typical kiss-up, constantly trying to please anyone he thought held influence, senior techs, or power, the branch and regional managers. He loved lording his authority over those he perceived as beneath him, particularly the new hires or lower earners. Billy's responsibilities included creating shift schedules and approving time off requests. If you were one of the big earners, this was a commission-based job. A typical interaction with Billy might sound like, "Hey, you need a day off? Sure, just let me know when and I'll be happy to help you." But if you were new or not bringing in much revenue, good luck even getting him to pick up the phone or listen to you. The incident that started it all. Around my third month on the job, I was sent to a mortuary for a job. As you can imagine, it was unpleasant. Hazardous jobs like this were tough, but paid really well. I pocketed around $200 for around an hour's work. However, during the job, I was exposed to some strong chemicals in the sewer line that left me feeling lightheaded and woozy. Recognizing that it wasn't safe for me to operate heavy machinery, I called Billy and let him know I was taking the rest of the night off. Billy flipped out. He threatened me with disciplinary hearing the next day if I didn't get back on the road. I calmly replied, "Sure, can't wait to see you there." The disciplinary hearing. The next day, I walked into the office and immediately requested that both someone from our HR and our assigned safety officer be present. Safety was a huge priority for the company, as they were self-insured, and any safety violation could result in immediate termination. Billy went first. He started with, "You can't leave your shift whenever you want, you're getting a warning, and next time I'll fire you." I stayed calm, reached into my bag, and pulled out the employee handbook. Flipping to the relevant section, I read out loud. If at any time you feel that the situation or job you're on is dangerous or may lead to a dangerous situation, you are to stop immediately. Another section explicitly stated that if an employee felt lightheaded, inebriated, or exposed to methane gas, they should not operate equipment and could go home. The company would even pay for transportation if the employee didn't feel safe driving. I turned to the safety officer and asked if I had done anything wrong. He supported me 100%. HR also confirmed that if it was a safety issue, I had every right to leave without worrying about my shift. The regional manager then asked me to leave the office, and as I walked out, I heard him tearing into Billy like a fat kid into cake. That should have been enough for me, but I'm petty. I don't forgive easily, and I'm very patient. Laying the groundwork for revenge. Over time, I became one of the top earners in my city. I was named Rookie of the Year my first year and Salesman of the Year my second. Meanwhile, Billy gained a reputation for being lazy and irresponsible. By my second year, Billy was put out on probation, and that's when I kicked my revenge into high gear. I rallied the new hires and some of my coworkers from my shift. Together, we made sure that at least once or twice a week, someone would lodge a legitimate complaint about Billy. We never lied, we just knew how to push his buttons and make him implode. New guys would ask for days off, someone would take a sick day during a busy shift, simple things that would send him spiraling. Eventually, the branch manager had enough. He called Billy into his office, demoted him to salesman, and reassigned him to my shift. At our company, shifts were tight-knit. We communicated constantly through truck radios while waiting for jobs and helped each other out when needed. Billy was now one of us, and it was time for some fun. Poetic justice. During Billy's first few weeks as a salesman, our supervisor made sure he got all the worst jobs: flooded basements, tight crawl spaces, and anything guaranteed to leave him covered in sewage. Meanwhile, I encouraged everyone I was friends with to call Billy and ask for scheduling changes. This forced him to explain to dozens of people how he had been demoted and was no longer in charge. It didn't take long for Billy to break. He eventually started crying to the dispatcher, saying he couldn't take it anymore, and quit. The day after he left, 2 coworkers and I threw a Billy's Gone party at a local bar. We brought pizza, cake, and even put up signs in the office. When handing in paperwork that morning, we made a general announcement about the party, knowing Billy would be there to give his 2 weeks notice. Billy actually approached us to thank us, thinking it was a going away party. I had the pleasure of informing him, "You're not invited, this isn't a going away party, it's a you're gone party. It wouldn't make sense for you to be at a party celebrating the fact that you are no longer here." About 20 out of 50 employees showed up, and it was a great time. Why Billy was despised. People have asked why Billy was so hated. Here are a few examples of his behavior. One of my coworkers had a 12-year-old son who passed away from cancer about a year before Billy left. Billy tried to have him fired twice for excessive absences. 2. Another coworker landed a $64,000 contract with a major hotel chain. Billy reassigned the contract to another tech, claiming the original coworker wasn't experienced enough, despite his supervisor's objections. 3. Billy wrote up a new hire for having a messy van. Most of our vans were disasters, so it was purely an act of petty cruelty. 4. He would grant vacation requests with the caveat that employees had to remain on call in case it got busy, making it impossible for them to travel. If you were a low earner, he'd cancel your vacation entirely, putting you on call against company policy. There are countless other examples, but listing them all would risk revealing personal information. Alright, so those examples at the end obviously weren't there when OP originally posted this story because the comments rip him apart for how he treated Billy. And I can kinda see it because getting him demoted was probably where this should have ended. But instead, they decided to throw a party about him no longer being there, and then directly told him to his face that the party was because he was leaving. I don't know, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide if they went too far. If you're on YouTube, comment down below and let me know what you think. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.